Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. Today, as per usual, let's go over NVIDIA stock. Very strong stock, but there are a little bit of signs of concern. I'll go over what I personally foresee happening for NVIDIA. And yeah, let's just get into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you enjoy my analysis, I do have my membership section on YouTube down below for just $3 a month. You get access to Tesla thoughts, posts, updates, etc. Right? Again, mainly Tesla, but also other stocks as well. Sometimes I share AMD. Today, I actually share Coca-Cola, or for $5, access to all of that, plus NVIDIA. Daily updates as well. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. NVIDIA closing the day up only 0.5%, closing at 136 per share, which I say the word only because, well, I mean, it is still technically outperforming the market, but it did have that nice gap up this morning and pretty much really starting from Friday after market because it got, if I'm not mistaken, included into the Dow, the Dow Jones. So yeah, I had a nice little gap up, but it pretty much gave up the majority of those gains, right? Which is kind of what I was warning my members about a little bit, right? And this is, it's kind of like what we did on Thursday, right? The same kind of idea-ish, and honestly, even Friday, arguably, because it's just, again, we had this area right here as support, right? When we were consolidating for a week and a half over here, this area that I circled was support. And now the last 3 days, we're turning it into a resistance. And you can see the volume does increase a little bit here on the right. So this general area is essentially just acting simply as well a resistance, right? And that's not really ideal. Like, that's not what you want to be seeing. This is still something that is a bit of a concern. Now, again, I want to make something really clear. NVIDIA is still, based on market bias, is still in an uptrend, right? It's still bullish, it's still in an uptrend. And the stock is strong. The stock is still really strong. So honestly, if I were to just kind of give you my overall real, genuine thoughts about it, yeah, it's bullish. It is bullish, despite me still having, issues here. And I personally wouldn't still enter this trade because I still see some signs of concern here. But the way I would probably enter the trade now that I'm honestly getting a better look at it is honestly, the closer to 130 I can get it, the happier I'll be. Why 130? Because like I said many times, and honestly also kind of what happened on Thursday, 130 is crucial. That's kind of the line in the sand, right? If NVIDIA stays above 130, as you can see back here, for instance, massive area of resistance, this area with the market bias over here with my custom settings, it just simply will and should act as a support, right? That should be a very powerful support for the stock because if it loses 130, not only is it losing a very important horizontal resistance, but it's also most likely going to be losing this market bias and most likely begin its downtrend. And, it can potentially get pretty ugly if that were to happen. So the most ideal scenario is essentially NVIDIA really, it doesn't lose 130 and the closer to 130 you can get an entry on a long position, really just the better risk versus reward it is, right? That's kind of how simple it is because your stop loss is really not that far under. So it's a very good risk versus reward in that specific scenario. You also have the BX trender you can see over here, just still a very long red band. Despite today's action, right? It's still a red band and it's still making lowered lows. So that's something to watch out for, but it is starting to get to pretty low down on the BX trender, which is also telling me, like, oddly enough, the fact that maybe NVIDIA is getting kind of close to a potential bottom, despite it really not falling that much really overall from this consolidation to this current quote unquote drawdown, we'll call it, that it's been having so far. It's been holding up relatively well. I will admit it's definitely been holding up relatively well. Now, again, the reason I wouldn't enter is because I need either a better risk versus reward entry, which again is closer to 130, or I need to see a strong breakout of this overall vicinity that we've been in, which at the very least, I want to see NVIDIA back above 140, but if I see it above 145, that's just another bullish breakout move that, can bring up to about 150, right? That's kind of the way I'm looking at it. And right now, this area is a bit of a chop zone. Honestly, if you're an option seller, for instance, on NVIDIA, this is a pretty good place to sell options on, honestly. But I don't have too much confidence here regardless, mainly because, I still see something, for instance, like a little bit of a potential head and shoulders pattern on the daily chart, right? I don't see too much confidence here. Like, it's just something about this is not giving me confidence. Maybe it's some intuition. I don't know what it is, but I look at this chart and despite my indicators still being like, hey, we're still green, we're still above the market bias, we're still technically bullish, there's just something holding me back and I don't know what it is. But again, that's just my personal opinion, right? In terms of just raw indicators, again, above market bias is great. And bring out the bands. We're pretty much right in the mean of the reversion. We're not overbought or oversold on NVIDIA. On the daily chart, we're pretty much right dead smack in the middle, which is not a bad place to be. My ideal scenario is buying it when it's oversold, when it's down in these levels, right? Which is kind of where AMD is right now. Unfortunately, AMD is not really showing any signs of recovery just yet, so I'm still being a little bit patient. I think this can go a little bit lower, but AMD is kind of where I'm getting a little bit more interested. And, people can be like, well, why would you not just buy a stock that's clearly in an uptrend, which NVIDIA absolutely is. There's no question about that. honestly, I love sniping bottoms. That's just my personal strategy. I love sniping bottoms. I love trying to find these stocks that are like getting really oversold like this, and really trying to like, get like a nice juicy entry near what I personally think could be roughly the bottom. That's just kind of I just like doing that. I don't know why. I love doing that kind of stuff, right? Again, that's just my personal trading strategy. But again, when you look at NVIDIA, right, you still have, of course, the market, not the market bias, the MACD still cross bearish, right? It's still to the downside, right? I mean, technically still the band on the BX trender is still pointing straight down and it's still bearish, right? If I bring out the SMI, for instance, as well, it is getting that bearish crossover to the downside. So, there are some signs of concern here, and there's no doubt about that, right? But again, to really just, to eliminate as much noise as possible, because, I can throw out like 30 indicators at you, but at the end of the day, the more indicators, the more noise, pretty simply put. The least amount of noise I can say is the fact that, honestly, I'm trying to reduce my indicators, but my favorite indicators that are reducing as much noise as possible and just looking at it as objectively as possible. Band regression, pretty good. It's not overbought. I mean, it's not oversold, but it's absolutely not overbought. It's pretty much right in the middle, which is, not too bad, right? Not too bad. It's in a neutral state in terms of, it's overbought or oversold type levels, which, honestly, is pretty good, right? Nothing to complain about that, really. And it's above the market bias. I like to see these things, and I can argue the fact that the BX trender is kind of starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel, so it makes you wonder like how much lower can that really, really go, which is why, like I said, if we do make a move lower, if NVIDIA does sell off to, let's say, election fears or whatever, if I can get an entry close to 130 without it breaching and ideally closing it daily below 130 and below the market bias, that to me is probably the best risk versus reward type entry. And that's just really all it comes down to, right? Pretty simply put, and that's just how I look at it. There's really not much more to it, and that's the most simplistic way I can potentially even think about NVIDIA without, again, having too much noise and too much just random, a million indicators just, covering up your screen. It's kind of almost like a meme, right? Where someone has like a million lines and indicators. Again, I'm trying to make things as simple as possible, not only for you guys, but also for myself, because I hate too much noise. I hate when there's a lot of noise in my chart, and I hate when I'm getting too many conflicting results. I want indicators that are just simple, nice, shows trend, shows overbought, oversold territory, and that's essentially all I really care about. And of course, you have the horizontal actual levels, and you're reading the actual literal chart itself, right? Simple, nice, and hopefully effective. And that's just kind of what it's telling me right now. Now, let's go over to the Cheddar Flow, which, by the way, phenomenal option service program. I have a link to it below if you're interested for a trial, or not a trial, it's a discount actually, so check it out if you're interested. But NVIDIA, I mean, I think to no surprise, the bulls are absolutely unhinged. Just yet another day that the bulls are unhinged on NVIDIA. Definitely a lot more bullish flow throughout the day compared to bearish flow as expected on NVIDIA. Really no surprise. But in terms of confirmed bearish flow throughout the day on Blackbox, also a good option service platform, 25 million. So yeah, again, a lot of mixed signals here, especially going to the election. Honestly, if there's a way to put it, also, if there's a time to really kind of just sit on your hands and not really do too many crazy things and maybe just wait for a dip from election fears that's, a little bit more severe, this would be the time, right? And there's no reason to rush into anything. There will always be more opportunities presenting themselves with a little more certainty. And that's just the way I'm also looking at it as well, which is why I'm not really rushing into a trade here, personally speaking. And so yeah, that's all I really got for NVIDIA. Not much more to add. Let me know what you think down below. See you for the next one. Peace.